and Shalom Aleichem. Peace be unto you on this beautiful and peaceful Shabbat day. Happy am I to be in the house of the Lord on this holy Shabbat day and to be among you, God's chosen people. It is a blessing to be here, and it is a blessing to be with you. I certainly appreciate it today because I haven't seen you in such a long time. It seems to me, I know those of you here every Shabbat, it's just every week. But to me, it seems like it's been a long time between the various different things. Of course, I was just in New York just a few weeks ago for the Youth Shabbat. And it was good to see all of our young people together and dominating the service and reading the Torah, including my son Levy. But that was over in Brooklyn. And so it's good to be back home here at Beth Elohim. And even though I don't have much voice, as you can tell, I told my mother this morning as we were coming, I said, I want to be here. I want to be in the house. To feel the Ruach and the Spirit and to see everyone. Even if I can't daven, then I'll just be here. If I don't get to read the Torah, I'll be here. And I said, I don't know if I'll be able to give a darasha, a sermon today, but we'll see. So I'm just going to maybe make some observations, some comments. And I am so delighted to see Moreh Yeftahk with us today. I'm sure Hashem sent him on a mission, whether he knew it or not. So I'll start a sermon. If my voice give out, then I'm going to hand it. Let me begin, as I so often do, in the book of Deuteronomy, in the 22nd verse. For there is written, Ha'azinu ha'shamayim ba'adabira. Give ear, O heaven, and I will speak, and the earth will hear the words of my mouth. May my teaching fall like rain, words like dew upon the gentle grass. For I will proclaim the name of the Lord, hallelujah, and ascribe greatness unto our God. That prayer by Moses is always my anthem, that I pray the people will be like grass, that you will be thirsty for knowledge, and that something that I say will help you to grow stronger and wiser. What struck me about this particular Torah Sutra is I think it contains some lessons for us and some insights into our patriarchs, into our founders. And it is said from each of our mothers and fathers we inherit certain qualities and certain gifts. And so today as we look at Jacob and Esau, we see certain qualities about Jacob that are useful to us. If we recall, his name Yaakov in Hebrew comes from the word ikev, which means the heel of your foot is the ikev. And so when he came out, they called him Yaakov because he was the heel grabber. He was holding on to Esau. And so they said, we're going to call him Esau. We're going to call him Yaakov. And this is a quality. And I say it's a good quality. Those who hold on. We like to sing, hold to God's unchanging hand. Why don't you hold to God's unchanging hand? Build your hopes on things eternal. Hold to God's unchanging hand. Well, there is power in God's unchanging hand. Well, there is power in Jacob. He holds on. He's got that grip. And see, this tells us that Hashem had a blessing in store for him.
Yes, he did.
But it wasn't just going to be easy
for
him to get his blessing. He was going to have trials and tribulations. From the very beginning, he says his troubles began in the womb.
Yes, he did.
Struggling with my brother. And maybe Hashem knew he was supposed to get that blessing, but Esau said, I'm going to try to steal it from you. I'm going to try to come out first and get the blessing. And so the question is, you know, when things don't turn out right in life, what are you going to do about it? You just going to let somebody steal your blessing?
No way.
And say, I was robbed, I should have got the blessing. So Jacob, he said, I was holding on. So they said, you're not the firstborn. We came out together. Not you came out, then I came out. We came out at the same time together. Now this quality, even though we're going to learn today, says, I'll change your name. Name should no longer be Jacob but Israel. I am going to suggest and argue to us, and I think that there gives me some foundation in this, that Jacob is always there in you.
Okay.
Jacob should be our default setting. We become Israel, just like he became Israel. And Israel refers to a state of being. This is a state of mind, a state of spirit. Israel be one who struggles and prevails. And so it is a description of a particular state of spiritual being. When we become that, we are worthy of the name of Israel. When we are not, then we're just Jacob. We're just struggling. But I'd rather be Jacob than one who has given up and one who is lost. So we are either struggling, holding on, like Jacob, or we are prevailing, like Israel. So the question is, which are you today? Are you struggling, or are you prevailing? But those are the only two choices for us, because we never give up. But in that struggle, you see, it was taking a toll on Jacob, who, as we said, has been struggling all of his life. And we could go over, and those of you who have been reading the passages each week, you know all the troubles everywhere. He went from his home with his brother to all the years he spent with Laban. And now, as he is coming back into the land of Israel, he struggles with his brother Esau. And so I'm going to start at the 12th verse. So I'm not going to read all of it. Genesis 32nd chapter, 12th verse. And for me, this is one of the most touching and moving passages in all of the Bible. People can debate among themselves what is the most beautiful passage in the Bible. People have their favorite scriptures and their favorite lines. What is the most beautiful passage? And there are a lot of scriptures in competition for that. But I think that this 12th verse here is without doubt one of the saddest prayers you'll ever hear anybody ever have to make. Because there, Jacob said, Hatsileni na, save me, I beseech you, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he come and strike me and the mother with the trap. So I say this is one of the saddest passages in all of the Bible. One of the saddest scriptures that you'll ever hear is somebody who has to offer this kind of prayer. We pray for a lot of things. But woe to you if you have to pray to God, oh God, please save me from my own brother. Save me from my own brother, from the hand of Esau. You know, that's a sad prayer. We got a lot of problems. But when you pray, God, please save me from my own brother, that is a sad prayer indeed. Now, if I may digress in a very unusual way for me, this does remind me, those of us, you know, who sometimes we have to fear our own brothers and sisters. That is a sad thing. Well, you got to be afraid of your own brothers and sisters. Not the stranger, not the enemy, but save me of my own people. Save me from the people who live in my own house. People who live in my own neighborhood. Those are the people I am most afraid of. And this is what Jacob said here. It does remind me of a line from a song by a rap group that was called Public Enemy. And they had a song called Fight the Power. And one line in that said, I didn't have to run from the Ku Klux Klan. I shouldn't have to run from a black man.
All right now.
Talking about afraid of my own brother. When I go out today, I'm not afraid of the Ku Klux Klan. I'm afraid of another black man. Fight the power. How sad it is when you got to say, God, protect me today from my own brother. Not from the stranger. There's also an interesting admission. You know, at the end of the Adon Olam prayer, it says, Adonai li, God is with me. Lo ira, I will not fear. But Jacob says here, I am afraid. I'm afraid.
I'm afraid.
I admit that I'm afraid. And I'm afraid of Esau.
For 400 men.
I am afraid of Esau. This, you know, this kind of admission of fear. We would say Jacob should not be afraid. As he says later, you know, in this passage. In the 10th verse, he said, and Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, the Lord who said to me, Shuvah, who told me, Shuv, return to your country and your family, and I, Imach, and I will be with you. So you told me go back. You told me you were going to be with me. I listened to you. I obeyed you. I trusted in you. And I came back. And here I am now, at the verge of destruction. He says, here we are, we are two camps, divided and waiting to be killed. So he's also wondering, I obeyed you, you told me to come back, I came back, and now we look like we're on the verge of destruction. Now, this struggle with Jacob here represents the struggles that many of us have with our faith. So we want to have faith and we want to believe. But when the circumstances seem to suggest that your faith is in vain, then you have the seeds of doubt and fear. So he had faith that God told him, and he went and he came back. But the circumstances, and what are the circumstances? The circumstances are that Esau is on his way, but he's not coming alone.
That's right.
It says he's bringing 400 men with him. And so his interpretation is he's bringing an army because he's going to want to kill him. He remembers what Esau said the last time he saw him. He says, when Isaac dies, that I'm going to kill Jacob. I don't want to kill him now because it might kill my father. But when he does die, then I'm going to kill Jacob. And so he says, I left, and I'm wondering after all those years if he's forgotten about that. Has he gotten over it? Or does he still want to kill me? Now this is also a good lesson, I think, at this time of the year, this time of Hanukkah, approaching in just over a week. And this holiday season of gift giving. So the lesson for that is, it says, when Esau encountered Jacob's men, that's what it was called today, Shalach, that when Esau came and Jacob came back into the land, he sent messengers. There's Malachim, which is messengers or angels. He sent these Malachim to Esau, and each one came bearing gifts.
Yes.
More and more gifts. The first group where they had gifts. The second group where they had gifts. And they had donkeys. And they had flocks. And they had camels loaded with gifts. And he kept sending all these gifts to Esau. And Esau kept coming with those men. So this is a lesson to us, I think, as it relates to this season about gift giving and the motive behind why people are giving gifts. If Jacob thought, well, giving these gifts, I'm going to win over Esau's anger, and he's not going to want to kill me anymore because I'm giving him these gifts, then he realized those gifts don't matter. That is not going to change how people feel about you. You got to examine your relationship to those people. And that especially goes for your children. Sometimes parents give gifts in place of love and in place of time. And so here's this gift. And yes, the child might be happy with the gift, but that doesn't mean that they don't miss you or that they don't resent. And the same thing with other people, expensive gifts, cheap gifts, the symbolism of the gifts. And Esau, we see here, is thinking, well, why would I accept these gifts if after I kill you, I'll take everything anyway? So how can you give me? I'm going to give you some camel. I'm going to give you some flock. I'm going to give you some sheep and goats. If Esau comes and does what Jacob thinks he's going to do, then he'll take all that anyway. It reveals in times of stress and challenges, and not only struggles with our faith, but it reveals who we are. Who are you under pressure? Who are you in decision making? And this reveals some unexpected things in the 23rd verse. And Jacob's relationship with these 4 women, the mothers of Israel. And this is why the Hebrew is so important. It says, and he rose that night and took his 2 wives and his 2 women servants and his 11 sons and passed over the ford of Jabbok. Now in the Hebrew it says, Vayyacham balayla, and he got up at night. Vayikat et shtei nasai, his 2 wives, Isha. Et shtei shifkotav. Shifkotav is usually translated as concubines or female servants or handmaids. But it's interesting and important that he does not, in this passage, refer to all of them as his wives. He says, 2 of these women are my wives. These other 2 women, I don't consider them my wives. So we don't have these same words in English. But in Hebrew, there's a difference. Right? Even though he's had children with all of these women, he says, these are my wives. And the circumstances that we talked about caused him to reveal who he really loves. See, this is why I'm talking about gifts and giving gifts. What you do is more important than the gifts that you might give. Because when he divided the camp, he didn't just divide them in 2. He says, well, if Esau comes and he destroys one camp, the other camp might escape. But he didn't know which camp Esau might destroy first.
Right.
So he arranged his families and his children, it says, in a particular order.
Order.
And the way he put them, he put Rachel in the back. And this is very evident to anybody with eyes. That he was putting her in the safest spot.
Yeah.
So that whichever side Esau attacked, she and her child, Joseph, and then she'll have Benjamin, then she'll die this sister as well. But it is clear that he was saving Rachel, putting her in the safest spot. Now imagine if you were Leah, or Bilhah and Zilpah, and he put you and your children out front, and put Rachel and Joseph in the back. And so maybe they weren't surprised, but the thing is, there came a moment where he demonstrated these things. And even though we know Esau did not then destroy them, they never forgot it. This would be experience in life you will never forget that night.
No.
And luckily you were spared. But you wouldn't be in doubt about where you are
Yeah.
after that night. And so this is again an important lesson for us. So he had these struggles, and if nothing had come along, but these events did happen. So so you could ask a person, if you're on a sinking ship and you could only save one person, who would it be? And you put them in that position. Would it be your mother or your wife? Would it be, your wife or your girlfriend? If you could only save one person, who would it be? Well, Jacob was in that position. And he made a choice that was very evident. And of course, this is going to lead to ongoing problems between Jacob's brothers,
Yeah. Right.
between among the children. They will hate Joseph throughout his whole life. And Joseph, I don't think, really understood why his brothers hated him so much.
Too young.
But it's like we've always resented you and your mother because of the way our father treated you. And it was clear that he loved you more, and he did that on this occasion. And then next week we'll see him make him a coat of many colors. And give him that coat. And so over and over again, the message he was sending to the rest of the family is, I love him more than the rest of you. So that's the lesson with gift giving. But let me conclude with this. There is a spiritual and psychological level in which we can also interpret this story. And the psychological is that everything we do physically has a spiritual counterpart. Right? And so when you're struggling with someone in the real world, you're struggling with their spirit. That they have a certain spirit, and you have a certain spirit, and your spirits are struggling, and you are in conflict with that person as well.
Yes.
But this is a struggle of spirits. And so one level to interpret this wrestling with the angels is, and Jacob was left alone, and they wrestled with the man until the breaking of the day. Now again in the Hebrew it says, Vayivater Yaakov levado ve'yakev. Now this is different from Akov, very similar. Akov is iron, kuf, vav. This is aleph, resh, kuf. So same letters, except the difference between an iron and an aleph. Iron and an aleph. But the word avek means dust. The Hebrew says he struggled. wrestle with the man, right? But again, the word, we have afa, meaning we created man from the dust of the earth, but avek, meaning like dirt, not adama, earth, but, and so the word struggle in this sense, I mean, they were in the dirt. This is kind of wrestling in the dirt. Ya'avek, ish imo, adolot, hashakah. Now this also is interesting. It says hashakah. What does the word shakur mean? Student team, what's the word shakur? This is a word we spell now. Shakur. It means black, right? So, and this is, they translate it as the breaking of dawn, right? And when you think about it, it is night, and then the breaking of dawn. Rabbi Baruch said, Shakur, right? So here's, they were wrestling, and then at the darkest moment, just before the breaking of the day, the Shakur, right, is when this revelation happened. And so, was that man the Malakim, the angel of the Most High? It says, Ish, a man. The spirit of a man. Was it the spirit of the Most High? Was it Esau's spirit? And he sends his spirit out before him, and your spirit. And even before you meet physically, that your spirits are engaged and wrestling. And so he might be wrestling with that spirit. I think we've all had a similar circumstance like this that we can identify with. When you are anxious about something, can you sleep well the night before?
No.
You're tossing and turning. You're wrestling in your sleep, in your spirit, and in your mind with that thing. So I'm not surprised that Jacob would not have a nice sleep that night. He was up all night. He said everything he can. He sent all the gifts he could send. And he sent them not at one time, but in groups. So each time they stop Esau. And then they stop him. And then they stop him. And they stop him. So I've delayed and procrastinated as long as I can. In the morning, we are coming face to face. There's no more procrastination, evasion, delays, right? He is so close now that in the morning, it's going to be face to face. And so, one interpretation, psychological, I'm laying this out as a possibility, not as a fact, but as a derasha, as we think about it, that in part he's struggling with his own doubts. Sometimes you can be struggling with yourself. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Your own impulses, your own fears. So many people today are struggling with their fears. They are struggling with their addictions. They are struggling with habits. They are struggling with things that they know are within them. And then sometimes they're struggling with external things. And sometimes they're struggling with internal, external things at the same time. And that's a real struggle. When you're struggling with all kind of things. Of course, we could throw work in there too. We could throw money in there. We could throw people struggling with all kind of things. And so he was struggling with these things, but he prevailed. And this is why he says, your name shall no longer, not necessarily winning, but not giving up. Which brings us back to, does his name really change it from Yaakov to Israel? He has always been a heel grabber. He has always been one who struggles. It says in this event, as they were wrestling in the dirt, it didn't say he was winning, but I'm not giving up. And so when it was time to leave, they just said, let me go. And Jacob said, I will not let you go. He says, even when you engage in struggle, it doesn't mean that the struggle is going to be fair. All right, you may be engaged in struggle with people bigger than you, people stronger than you. And the people you engage in may not fight fair. And it says the angel, the man he was struggling with. Torah says, reached and pulled out the hollow of his thigh. So that was an unfair move. Whatever that refers to, he did something that you're not supposed to do when you fight at somebody else. Right? But does not the Torah say if two men are fighting and the wife intervenes by grabbing the man she's fighting, but grabbing him in a particular part of his body? So here it says, that he's struggling, and the people he's struggling with, they don't even fight fair. They hit you with a low blow. Hit you where it hurts the most and where you shouldn't be hit in a fair fight. This is a lesson to us. But even if you're in this situation, don't give up. Don't let go. And he says, I will not let you go until you bless me. And this is an odd thing to ask somebody who's trying to kill you to bless you. But this means that I've done more than kill you. Because if I kill you, you haven't changed. But I have changed you. And sometimes changing a person is harder than killing them. And so he prevailed there. And he says, your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel. Now the reason I say that is we hear Genesis, and from this week on through the rest of the Torah, I suggest this name Jacob will continue to be used. Even though it says don't call you Jacob anymore, Jacob is still called Jacob throughout. And when the Torah refers to our patriarchs, it says Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, not Yisrael. So even though the name Yisrael, he says don't use that name Jacob. Jacob is continued to be used. And so this is why I said we don't use it when we are prevailing. Then we become Yisrael. When we just ordinary Israelites, then we are Yaakov. And so I'll end with this analogy. I compare it to the difference between Clark Kent and Superman. Okay, now see, we know they're the same person. But when you're just an ordinary mild-mannered reporter, you Clark Kent. When you go in the phone booth and put your S on, then you become Superman. And so we are Jacob, and then we reach a spiritual level where we become Israel. We become Israel. And at that moment, I'm Israel at my best. When I'm having doubts and worries, I'm struggling, I'm Jacob. But even in that, I don't give up. And so this is why we're Jacob and we're Israel. At times we're Israel. At your best, you're Israel. You're not always Israel. Right? If you're going to be Israel, you got to be at your best. You got to be succeeding and prevailing. And you got to represent the best of that spirit. And then it is appropriate to call you Israel. Let's see the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. For this is a whole duty of man. For God will bring every work into judgment concerning every secret thing, whether it be good, whether it be evil. Shabbat shalom and shalom blessing. What a mighty God. Moreh Yeftahk.
Honor and praise to the Most High God, King of heaven and earth, even the God of our forefathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Israel. I bid you all in the tongue of our forefathers, Shabbat Shalom again, and peace and blessings to you all. I give thanks unto the Rabbi, even Rabbi Sholomo, for having me this day. You always keep your doors open. For allowing me to say a few words before the Most High's people. I ask that the Most High God continue to bless you all, keep you all, that He would continue to bless this community of ours and allow us to frequent each other's doors as we move to and fro, because it's important to see how Israel lives and to understand that we're important resources to one another. And so, I'm not going to be long. I'm going to piggyback off of the rabbi's lesson. And I'm going to talk about, and I just want to say, Todah Rabbi, thank you for that Darasha. Because, it's important that the things you're thinking, when you hear other people say them, without them knowing what you're thinking, that God is in the matter. God is always in the matter. And so, I was thinking about Yaakov's life. And when we think about the patriarchs, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Abraham had a lot of outside problems. Yitzchak had a lot of outside problems. But when it came to Yaakov, he had a lot of internal problems. Not that Abraham didn't have internal problems, because we remember Sarah and Hagar. But a lot of his stuff was from the outside. He had the Egyptians to deal with. Yitzchak had the Philistines to deal with. But then here comes Yaakov. And, I find it funny that when he left his parents' house, he had to deal with his uncle. And then after he had to deal with his uncle, he had to deal with his wives. And then after he had to deal with his wives, and he thought he left that situation, here he goes having to deal with his brother. And so what do we learn from that? You can run, but you sure can't hide. He had to resolve that. And he didn't understand that. And he had to learn that as an elder, as an older man. And so that's the same thing for us, right? As we get older, there may be things that we have unresolved from our youth that eventually one day we're going to have to face. And so, I can handle, maybe I owe somebody some money. Because you know what? If I owed you $20 from 1996, all right, listen, I need to come off $20, right? If I need to say I'm sorry, I can say I'm sorry. But it's much different when the last time me and you spoke, I heard you say, I'm going to kill you. When you desire to kill somebody, that comes from a different place within. That comes from a level of hatred, despising somebody, to a point where I want to ensure not only that I don't see you anymore, but that nobody else sees you anymore. See, we seen Abraham and Lot. We seen what they went through. And Abraham, even though he was the undisputed leader of that camp, he just told Lot, hey, listen, if you go left, I'll go right. And if you go right, I'll go left. But let's not let there be strife between us. Let's not let other people tear us apart because this family is too important. Do we understand that even though Jacob and Esau, Yaakov and Esau came from the same womb, they did not have the same ideals? They had the same parents that taught them the same things. They were in the same tent, in the same room, and two entirely different people. I had a conversation with my father. And I told him, I said, the Israelites, they can be a bunch sometimes. I told him, I said, every time I think, I'm making ground, we get someplace else where I'm like, man, I can't believe people think like that. And so, I was telling him, I said, it's the book we read. Love your brother as you love yourself. Extend yourself. Be kind to one another. And I can't understand how people think like that. And so he had to remind me. He said, hey, listen. You went to school, right? I said, yeah. He said, you had people that was in the same class with you, right? I said, yeah. He said, did all of y'all graduate? I said, no. Some people were on the honor roll, and some people just skated on by.
Right.
There were some people with C's and some people with A's. And so he told me, he said, I don't want you to think for 1 minute that you're all the same, because you're not. And I had to take a step back. I have to consider that.
That's right.
Jacob and Esau were not the same person. And God made that abundantly clear.
Yes, he did.
And Esau had to deal with the fact that he was not the chosen of God for what God wanted his people to be. And that was his own internal fight. And so sometimes the struggles we deal with are struggles that other people are dealing with, even though it's our own family. Sometimes you have to deal with people's addictions, and they're upset at life because they have their addictions, because of what they struggle with, because they don't have what you have. And you have to learn to be the bigger person and say to yourself, not by strength and not by might, by the Spirit of the Most High God. You can't kill everybody every time you have a problem. You can try, but see what happens to you. I say all the time, if you scare enough people, I guarantee you, they're all going to band together and do something about you.
Oh, yeah.
So what happens with the bully? Beat one person up, you beat the second person up.
Oh, yeah.
Like, listen, we're not going to be able to fight him a fair way. So let's get together. Or you can use wisdom. Or you can use your mind. See, here's the thing about Yaakov. He had his strengths and he had his weaknesses. There I said it. He had his weaknesses. And we all have weaknesses. We all have things that we're better at and things we're not so good at. So yeah, maybe favoritism was his weakness. Maybe he was at a point in life that he struggled so much that there were certain things that he felt comfortable with. But no matter what, in all that he did, he put his family first. His children couldn't understand that because they were too young to understand that. His wives didn't appreciate that, but they never understood exactly the position that their father put Yaakov in. It's easy to talk about his favoritism, us looking at it in hindsight. But when I come and I expect to work 7 years for one woman, and you switch it up on me, how am I supposed to feel about that? When I stop and I work the next 7 years for the woman that I actually wanted, and you start to switch your wages up on me again, how am I supposed to feel about that? And yes, I'm a human being. I admit it. Sometimes in me focusing on what's happening in the world actually translates to what goes on in my household. Can we relate to that?
Yeah.
Things happen at work. People make me upset at work. You can see on my face that visibly I'm upset. And I come home and you're ready to enjoy time with me. But I need a minute to what? To relax. I need a minute to unwind. I need a minute to debrief. Right? I gotta come away from that. And guess what? If I work 12 hours, and it takes me an hour to travel to get there, and an hour to travel to get back home, and it's been 14 hours since I actually relaxed, how much do you think you're getting out of me? I mean, let's be honest with one another. And so, sometimes I might have to just stop and admit to you that, hey, listen, I'm trying my best. And that's who Yaakov was. That's who our father was. He was a man who tried his best. And in him trying his best, hey, listen, I'm not saying it's right, but I've seen our foreparents in this country. women who walked 5 miles to work, 6 miles to work, to be on their feet all day long, cleaning somebody else's house, catering to them for what we deem today to be peanuts, to walk back home. Feet hurting, back hurting, to come home and take care of a household. And sometimes their children didn't feel loved enough. But then there were some children who stopped and looked and seen what they were going through and said, I'm going to ensure that my mother doesn't have to go through that when I grow up. And I'm going to ensure that my daughters are not in a position to go through that. And men who sacrifice for their families, not being home months at a time, knowing that their wife was waiting for them, knowing that their woman was waiting for them, and they did the best that they could under the circumstances presented. And so I say about Yaakov, he was scared of his brother, and he was scared for his family. He was scared. He didn't send his family first. He sent the gifts first. The problem was Esau kept coming.
Amen.
Drove upon drove. They kept coming, and it was like, hey, listen, he didn't stop yet? No. He's still coming. And I say at the end of it all, he went out there first. He stepped out, and he went to go meet his brother. And then, when the rest of them seen it was peaceful, then they started approaching. But the reality is that if they seen something was going left between him and his brother, they all had the opportunity to make a move. And so, I say, when we judge one another, remember, everybody isn't always the best. There's certain situations that you can't prepare yourself for. I can't prepare myself for the day that I'm going to die, because I don't know how God is going to take me from this place. But what can I do? Is what Jacob did. He prayed. He asked God to be with him. He asked God to be merciful unto him. He fought the angel. He obviously wasn't a chump, right? He fought with the angel all night long. So I'll be the first one to say, he'd be like, man, if you could beat an angel, you could beat anybody. I'm going to fight with him. At that point, I'm like, all right, let's go. I could do this. I like to think I'm still in shape. But when you got 400 men with you, you can't beat them all.
No.
And so, wisdom is better than might. Walk with the law in your heart. Let people see the good in you.
Amen.
Let people be able to see that it doesn't have to be like that. And especially don't be like that with family. I say all the time, we do things to make each other upset. We do it, but that's no reason to fight. That's no reason for us to come to fisticuffs, right? That's no reason to get outside forces to help us in our quest to show dominance over one another. That's not how God intended it. And so as we see in our communities and as we build our communities and as we go from place to place, just consider it. Did you ever see Isaiah talk about Jeremiah in a bad way? The prophet Isaiah, what we read in our book. Isaiah arguing with Jeremiah. Jonah arguing with Haggai. Zechariah and Zephaniah. Did you know those two are at odds? It sounds weird, right? That's not who we are. Just imagine what we do with one another, how we look, and how God sees us. The idea is to uplift one another. The idea is to make one another better. The idea is not to drag each other down. And so there's a job in us getting away from God, in us actually going away so far that God covered over the prophets, and he covered over the seers, and those who had the vision. And in him getting rid of the priests, and also having people wanting to get away from being priests, the road that we have to climb is a long road. The road to recovery has to be stronger. And so if there's anything that you've ever dealt with internally, or externally for that matter, let us remember that it didn't happen in one day. It wasn't something that was easily attained. We read this week that Jacob had a problem with his brother, then his daughter had a problem, and then later on he's going to go down into Egypt, and they're going to have problems, and that is us. So my word today is, whether the problem is external or whether the problem is internal, pray to God. Ask him to show you the way, and I guarantee you, he'll show you the might and the strength you need to have, whether it's physically or whether it's mentally, to trust in him at all times. Hoping and praying that you got something out of what I said, and that the Most High God found these words acceptable which he's spoken for his people. As I bid you all in the tongue of our forefathers, Shabbat Shalom Lakem.
Amen. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Well, at this time, we're happy to have Shekinah here, because she'll give us our announcement. I understand the board will be coming back soon.
Yes. There's no need for me to go all the way up to the front. The only announcement that I have is December 29th.
Forefathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless this entire holy congregation, along with all the holy congregations, them, their wives, sons, and daughters, and all that are theirs, and those who dedicate synagogues for prayer, and those who enter them to pray, and those who give lamps, illumination, wine, Kodesh, and Havdalah, bread for guests, and charity for the poor, and all involved faithfully in the needs of the community. May the Holy One, blessed be he, pay their reward, and remove from them every affliction, heal their entire body, and forgive their every iniquity, and send blessings and success to all their handiwork, along with all Israel, their brethren. And let us say, Amen. Hallelujah. Amen. Amen. Saying, speak unto Aaron and his sons, that they may bless the children of Israel with these words. Yivrechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha, Yerunah p'nai v'lecha v'yikunecha, Yisa Adonai p'nai alecha Vayyishlach. Shalom. May God bless you and keep you safe. May God turn his face toward you and be gracious unto you. May God lift up his countenance toward you and grant you peace. Shabbat shalom and shalom aleichem.
Excuse me, Rabbi, we need some strong men to help mommy go down the stairs. She cannot make